Hey, my name is ShawNshawN. I sell art on ShawNshawN.co. Today we're going to review Addams Family 2. It's got three directors, Greg, Tierman, Conrad, Vernon, Laura Brossman. Time is an hour and a half, or hour and 33 minutes, so right at that sweet spot, hour and a half. Actors are Oscar Isaac as Gomez Addams. I'm always thinking it's Isaac Oscar for some reason. Charlize Theron is Morticia. Chloe Grace Moretz plays Wednesday, the daughter. Javon Walton is Pugley Addams. Nick Kroll plays Uncle Fester. And Snoop Dogg plays It. So the Addams family decides to go on a vacation for whatever reason. And they're being chased by this mysterious kind of doctor who wants to do a genetic test. On Wednesday, they think she is the daughter of someone else. And finally she does her own test and she's like, oh, I'm going to run away. I think that actually is my father. So she goes to Sausalito where the father lives. Turns out he's a mad scientist. And then eventually it leads to the Addams Family showdown with the mad scientist. So one really funny thing happened in the film, which was really outrageous. So it was really popular because the theater was really packed because Snoop Dogg was in it. So he brought, obviously, there's very little representation, especially in animation. Sometimes there is, sometimes there's not. But there's a lack of representations for minorities. So, a lot of black kids showed up for this. They're all excited to see Snoop Dogg in the film as It. So that was pretty cool. But it got really noisy and I was like, oh man, it's going to be a disaster, right? And so they're talking, chattering. People were watching videos. But it kept going on into the film. Like, who cares of the previews, right? The previews of the previews. But somehow, like right before the film starts, some guy comes in and he shouts at the top of his lungs, literally like, shut the fuck up. I'm like, what the hell's going on, right? And so people get a little quieter, but they're still kind of chattering through the film, right? So about a third of the way through the film, they're just chattering. You can barely kind of follow the film because it's just like they're chattering nonstop. People are watching videos on their phones. You're like, what the hell are you even in here for? But the kids are having a good time, obviously. They're just not really watching the film. They're just like jamming out with doing their own thing. Totally ADHD kind of kids. So then security shows up. They roll these two black women shows up and I don't know, one of the managers or something. And then it's like, I think they kicked out literally like half the cinema. So then it's like super quiet, right? You can actually follow the film finally. But because you're so used to all the noise, you just can't really follow none of the jokes landed completely flat because you're so used to people just like chattering nonstop and making who knows what in the background. So it just kind of threw off the whole film a little bit. Then later, I get up at the end of the credits, walk out of the cinema, and you look, the lights go up, and you look around, there's like popcorn everywhere. People leaving chicken here and there. You're like, what the fuck is this? Like they had a food fight, I guess, in the middle of the cinema. That's probably why they got cut out. So, that was pretty funny. And then I walk out, and then this young black girl, she's a teenager, she goes like, sir, you want me to slap those kids for you? Oh my God, I was going home. I was like, I have to call my brother, man. This is the funniest shit ever. Oh my God, I did like, man, just that one scene. I mean, the film was just okay, but man, this freaking... You want me to slap those kids for you? And the food fight everywhere. I mean, they're literally like 3 times trashier than you've ever seen a movie theater. Like, just popcorn everywhere. And I used to work at this and I was like, oh my God, they're going to be there forever, like vacuuming this up, right? But just hilarious, Has nothing to do with this film, so it kind of, my whole review is going to be thrown because of that. But anyway, they have like this convoluted story with 3 writers and they have 3 directors. I'm like, that's really problematic. I think you really need at least 1 director. Hopefully just 1 writer and hopefully just a director and writer. It gets a really unique vision, but you have 3 of 3. It's just like, it's going to be like convoluted, combining everything. And you really get the feel in the story. It's kind of like all over the place. The jokes don't always land. I think it's just because there's so many writers, and probably what happened was half these writers are junior writers, so they threw them all together and were like, all right, they'll make a film together and we'll see how it turns out. It's kind of a way to bring on new writers and then they work on a sequel or something and then later they can do their own film if it's good. So it's like one of those films, right? A lot of big talent though on the actors, so they had a lot of potential, I think. As far as there's a great unique look from the creative side of all the animators, I think they did a really kick-ass job. They have really great look as far as like everything's elongated, kind of gothic look, very Addams Family, but stretched out because it's animation, so you can be more ridiculous. So really great special effects on that side, on the creative side, on the visual effects, just spectacular. But it doesn't really make up for the kind of poor story writing and jokes landing flat and just not that funny of a joke. So kind of writing it, you can definitely tell the writers are kind of junior. I thought it was a good representation of people in the film, different minorities and everything. But it kind of felt forced at some point. Like they go to a beach and there'd be a whole bunch of people show up, and you go to the party and a whole bunch of people would show up, and you're like, does this even make sense? The only time it did make sense was when they went to a biker bar and it was all like white bikers. So that kind of made sense. But they went to like, a beach in Miami, it makes sense you'd have mixed people because Miami is definitely mixed. But other parts of the film, you're just like, they just throw in some people in there to make it look more colorful, right? So, it's cool. They're trying to make a representation. But when it feels forced, then it doesn't come off natural. So the thing that felt natural is probably the biker bar scene, I'd say. The crazy scene with the Addams Family and the mad scientist, that felt fine. But other parts of the story are just like, they're just throwing in random people, We'll have a token Chinese guy, a token black guy. Like, yeah, just... it's cool, but then it's kind of like, it has to make sense to the story. I don't always felt like it was doing that. The really funny thing is you have It shows up and he's actually Snoop Dogg, and then, but he's all animation, so you don't know it's Snoop Dogg until he starts singing, unless you've seen the previews of the film and the marketing, you would know, which obviously is the reason why people came. But I think that's a really fun twist, especially if you don't know. If you watch the film with no marketing, you'll be really surprised and have a much funner interpretation of the film if you don't know that going in. The other thing I think is the singing doesn't make sense. It's like they threw in Snoop Dogg. It's like, we'll have him singing two different parts, and they kind of throw it in there, but it doesn't integrate very well with the story, I think. Like, there's no reason why he's singing per se. There's a party, so they're obviously you have singers at a party. But that's the end scene. It's like Act 3 extended, so it's like it's not even necessary for Act 3. And in the beginning of the film, he's on a beach and he's singing as well. He comes in riding his crazy water ski, and it looks cool and everything, but then you're like, does it make any sense to the plot? I don't know. It's just a little strange. So that, I think they could have done a little bit better job there, maybe. But obviously they pull in Snoop Dogg, they're gonna have a huge pull. So they got that, audience attendance, I think, but I don't know if they really integrated it well into the film per se. It just felt a little forced there. They had some really fun jokes, like kind of throwbacks for adults. So they have a joke on Carrie, the scene where the famous scene where the blood falls all over the people. So they have that scene. And they have V for Vendetta where everything's getting blown up. And that's kind of a funny take on other adult films that adults would know, but the kids probably wouldn't know. So it's always good to have that in a kid's film because you keep the parents happy while the kids are watching. So that's always a kind of a fun thing. And they have another joke about a marriage proposal that never happens and then it finally does because Addams finally keeps screwing up everything for this poor couple trying to propose. And there's also this fun take on human tissue being developed as replacement organs, which is a real thing that's actually happening. In this case, it's actually blending human and animal DNA and with terrible results, right? So it's kind of a funny take on the reality of what science is actually developing, where they're growing like all kind of human tissue inside of cows and chickens and all kind of stuff, and you're like, I don't know if this is going to turn out well, guys. Like, like people like that are older, like in their 70s, they're never going to experience it, but we'll probably see our grandkids, putting this stuff in their bodies. You're like, I don't know if that's a good idea, guys. So who knows what the future of the humans hold. It could like evolve into a different species in a way, because once you introduce those animal traits, you're going to start a natural evolution process, I think, with those people, especially if you replace several organs and then you have kids. You're definitely mixing some of the animal DNA inside of human DNA. So we'll see what the results are. Maybe I'll find out in my lifetime, but it might be a couple generations out, but it could be a disaster. But it's really interesting that they have this in the film. It's kind of funny, and they make fun of that result. Maybe that won't be the result. Maybe they'll be able to control the DNA. Like, you can grow a human organ inside a cow and nothing happens, but I really have my doubts that that's going to be possible as far as growing high quality human tissue without it being, because it's just natural for tissue to kind of blend together and fight each other and all that. So who knows how they work it out in the end. Maybe they'll grow it into some test tube eventually, but we'll see what happens in the future. We'll probably won't be in our lifetime, but it might, who knows. So it's a really funny film. I guess I'd recommend it. I don't think it's super strong. You could just get it on video, watch it at home. I don't see why you'd see it in the cinema per se, except for the music and the food fight. Obviously, kids throwing stuff everywhere. Like, that's definitely primo. But that's not guaranteed in every film. You're not going to know who's going to attend. But I definitely had a primo experience that had nothing to do with the film. If you'd like to subscribe, you can subscribe below. And I'll see you in the next movie review, guys. Thanks for watching.